Hi, everybody. My name is Andjela. I'm 21 and I graduated MSF with the class of 2020. And I'm currently on my third year of a psychology bachelor's in Amsterdam. And I'm going to try to answer some of your questions to help you with choosing universities and giving you a better perspective. So firstly, why did you decide to study where you were and how did you decide on studying your course? So for me, it was very straightforward from for a long time that I wanted to study psychology, which made it a lot easier to start looking for universities. And after knowing what subject I wanted to study, I looked at which language I wanted to study in, and then I tried to see where in the world I would like to be. And when I realized I wanted to study in English and stay somewhere within Europe, I tried looking at good English speaking universities for psychology. I guess it can help also to look at the rankings. For me, it wasn't too important, but you can also look at that. And after that, for me, it was more of just choosing the place that seemed best for me. I attended the open days of my university here in Amsterdam during the 12th grade. So I came to see how it all looks like and if I liked it and it seemed the right fit. So I applied there. And I was lucky that a close friend of mine just started her studies of psychology on the same university. So I had some inner perspective to just see how if it seems suitable for me. But with choosing the course, so for me it was easy because I knew I wanted to study psychology. And then I was just trying to pursue the interests more. But if you don't know what you want to study yet, I would say not to stress too much because you have more than enough time to figure out what suits you best. And people give a lot of different advice for what to do after high school if you don't know what to study. And of course, gap year is a great option if you don't feel like starting to study yet, or if you don't want to choose to study something that doesn't interest you and feel like you would lose time in that sense and want to gain other experiences. But on the other hand, if you feel like already starting um, your independent life and your university life, choosing something that doesn't fully interest you and you are not sure if you want to pursue a career in that per se yet, I think it's a good choice to just decide to go to uni anyway and start with something that maybe doesn't fully interest you, but then you can see if it does interest you or not. And if it doesn't interest you anymore, you can very easily switch, especially I think at my university, also with tuition fees, it's not too complicated to just change a course, and a lot of people do it. And that's one of the things I also like about my university. Just changing your mind about what interests you is really only your own business, and people do try to help you in this process. So I think just don't put too much pressure on yourself when choosing, even if you don't know yet. It's okay, and you will figure it out in the next couple of years. And just trying to gain new experiences, especially by living on your own, can maybe help you a lot to just decide which direction you want to go in. Um, so another question is how has IB helped you at the university, my first university year? So I think one of the biggest things for me was academic writing and writing of IAs, because that independent work that we had to do, that I'm sure you are doing now around IAs and writing all of those assignments at once, was a really good base for some of the assignments I had to write at university, especially in the first year. I had, I would say, advantage upon students who didn't do those kinds of assignments, because even though they started explaining those initial steps too, I was quite aware of how to write a report such as AI, which was very beneficial in my course. In psychology, especially at my university, psychology is very scientifically orientated. So writing those assignments is a big part of it. Usually there's at least a few assignments every year. So writing the assignments was a lot easier because I already knew how to have that scientific approach from IAs. Then what is some advice you can give for university with choosing between universities and courses and studying and living by yourself? So with choosing between universities, yes, it's easy to say you should look at some factors such as the place where you want to live. For me, Amsterdam was seemed like a really good fit, and I tried to see also how my everyday life would look that outside of studies too, and that was a big factor for me when choosing the university. Tuition fees, the price of the university, and the cost of living can also be a big factor. For example, if you want to study in Amsterdam, one of the big disadvantages, is that there is a big housing crisis currently, and it's really difficult to find an apartment. Even student housing is not really guaranteed for all of the students. So this is one of the disadvantages that you would have to take into account before choosing to study here, for example. But with all of that, just think of what's important for you personally. If it's the course itself, the content of the course, if it's the rating of the university, if it's your studies after university, and then you need a base for that. So I think when choosing between university, just make a list of what's important for you, and then weigh the pros and cons. And when it comes to courses, I would apply the same principle, just like try to pursue something that interests you. And if you end up finding out it doesn't, or if that course is not the right fit for you, you can always change it. And you will just have a bit more experience, and you will just have a little better picture about it. And when it comes to living by yourself and everyday life, that's for me, it was a very positive experience. Obviously, it comes with a lot of challenges, and you have to learn a lot of things along the way. But I really like that independency that you can have, and the freedom to to structure your own day completely the way you want it. And that's also something university gives you. You have a lot of freedom to make your time yours and study the best way suits you. And I would say one of the most important things when starting your independent living, for me at least, was making social contacts. Because when you start making friends and meeting people around you, it's a lot easier to deal with all of the other things that are difficult when living independently, because you always have someone to ask if something would get broken in your apartment and you needed to borrow it from a friend that lives close by. It's always a lot easier when you know more people, and you can always ask. So I would say when you start your university year, especially if you feel like meeting a lot of new people, it's a great opportunity to just to help yourself make it easier, but to also enjoy those first years of university more. And what is some advice you can give for IB? Well, I would say that with the IB, I can only give one of those advice that everybody else gives: would try to start on time and try to not procrastinate, or to procrastinate the least as possible. Because it's just really what it comes down to, is a lot of time pressure, especially as IB starts to wrap up, and then you will be under a lot of stress if you didn't start on time or didn't fully understand something. So ask and start on time are the best advice I can give. Um, what is the difference between learning at MSF and studying at university, and how busy are you with university work? I would say one of the main differences is that at university, you really choose what you want to study. So instead of having a whole set of classes that you have to choose from, and some of them you might be really interested in, some of them you might be less interested in, at university, you can really try to uh, you choose a course that you want. So, when I would study psychology, even if I had a subject that wasn't in my close range of interests, I would know that in a few months I will have a new class that may be more specific to my interests. So it's you have more opportunity to really study what suits you. And I'm quite busy with the university work, especially because I'm in my third year. So it's a lot more of responsibilities, but it's definitely manageable. Like from the first year of university, it was still manageable to have a job and to have a good social life and to do some sports on the side. And all of these kinds of things are still very possible just when you manage your time a little better. But what's different from IB is also depends on the structure of your courses and the university you're in. So for me, for example, we have 6 periods throughout the year. Each period lasts about 7 weeks, and 3 to 7 weeks, and we have either one or two subjects courses within one period. So it would be quite intense, for example, because we constantly have to do some work, and after one period has ended, we have exams. So you kind of have to continuously study, and procrastinating is very tricky because you lose track of what you're doing very easily. But still, we have a lot less subjects at once, which is, for example, quite a lot different than in high school when you had to be on top of kind of all of the classes that you had. Here, it's a bit more distributed, at least at my university. Then how did you go about researching and applying for university? Uh, for me, that was quite a complicated process because I wasn't very good at it and wasn't very familiar with it. But when I realized I wanted to study in the Netherlands in English, I tried to look at also the rankings, but at how different psychology bachelors were structured, how difficult would it be to get in, which ones seemed to have courses that interested me, and so on. And when I started applying for them, there's this platform that's specifically for Dutch universities. I think it's called Studialink or Studialink, I'm not sure. But that's where the application process begins. And then usually you can have to kind of keep track of this website, and university will send you the details you need to fill out yourself and when you need to apply. And when it comes to those um, tests that you would have to do as a part of your application process, for my course and for my university, that test wasn't difficult at all. It was also at the beginning of Corona, so we had it online and it was open book, so it wasn't too difficult at all to pass and get like good points on that first test. So the application process in itself, with like wondering if I got into university or not, wasn't too stressful. But you do have to keep track of all of the documents you need to send, and you, especially with Dutch universities, you really need to pay attention on deadlines and try not to miss them, because after you've really missed important deadlines, it's not it's really difficult to many of the times you cannot apply anymore after you've missed the deadline. Did any challenges or surprises come up while applying to university? For me personally, not, because all of the information you can really find on the website, or you can ask. So whatever is unclear to you, my university, for example, is very, very easy to communicate with. It's always going to be someone who's going to reply to your email. And if you call them, you can always ask them anything. And usually they can be quite nice. If you need additional help, I'm sure you can talk to student advisors. And this is also quite straightforward on the website. So they So for me, there were no surprises really, because whenever I had a question or something was slightly challenging or surprising, I could call to make sure to ask if I'm doing the right thing. What is your daily or weekly routine like? So for me, the routine depends a lot on my study schedule, my university schedule, which changes every few weeks because of those periods changing. So right now, for example, I have university 4 times a week. I have a few lectures and a few tutorials, which are like work groups. And Monday to Thursday, in the morning or in early afternoon, I would have the classes. And in those days, I would try to get up relatively early just to start my day on time, and to try to prepare for class a little bit, or try to do something after class. I would try to study throughout the day. So after those classes, I would stay at university or would try to study at home. It helps a lot to study with friends for me. So I always try to meet up with someone, either at university or in a cafe or something, to study. And in the afternoon, I try to keep my afternoons free for whichever activity that I feel like doing. Socializing, for example, usually happens in the evenings for me, and then I have a lot of time throughout the day to work on whichever work I need to do. And I'm also currently working, so on Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays, I would have my job, and that can sometimes feel like a lot, but I've had a job throughout most of the time while I was studying, and it was always quite manageable to still have a job and to study. And it helps me also with the structure of my day, because it's another activity. And when you find a job that you like, which is, for example, really easy in Amsterdam, uh, that's one of the easiest part in Amsterdam, is to find a job. You can very easily do that if you're a student. And if you find that it's a nice activity on the side, you would get the money, and you would also get to expand your horizons, meet new people, and yeah, you would have something aside of studying too, which can sometimes help with like motivation and such. And I try to leave at least 1 or 2 days a week free, so I can rest, or I can catch up with some work that I have to do. And I would try to leave weekends as free as possible, so I can have some time off and rest, or see my friends, or go out, or anything of the sort. What is life outside of university and your studies like? Well, life outside of studies in Amsterdam is great. I was very lucky to have had to still have student accommodation. So I've since I moved here, I've lived around a lot of people, which for me personally was very good and suited me really well, because then you would always be surrounded by someone, and if you felt like socializing, you could always call someone up that's around. And in that sense, meeting new people and gaining those kinds of new experiences outside of university is very valuable. And I think that's one big part of living in Amsterdam, especially because here you really have a lot of options with pursuing your hobbies or passions. Whatever you are interested in, you can find a group of people that has similar kinds of interests. There's a lot of different kinds of events, from people who would maybe like to party and to have a lot of fun in their 20s, and such, to people who to a lot of different sports activities, or all kinds of little hobbies or clubs, and all kinds of activities that you can join and find quite easily. And people are very open, which is very nice. People are usually very open towards accepting you, and towards meeting you new people as well. So you can really see what fits you best in terms of any extracurricular activities in your life outside of university. If you are someone who likes to spend more time alone and need that kind of peace, you can also always choose to do that. And there's never that, you can always really choose. You have a lot of that freedom to pick what kind of life and routine outside of university suits you. And so what was your application process like? My application process, yeah, started with just applying at Studio Link, sending some documents. And then in the next few months, there were a few of the deadlines that I needed to keep track on, such as that intake exam. But after, besides that, just keeping track of when you need to send which document to them, and if it's in the right format, and then choosing housing over university and taking care of all of those practical stuff is just a very long and ongoing process. And for me, it went without too much trouble, but it's just a bit difficult because you just have to pay attention to a lot of things at once. I think these were all of the questions. So thank you for listening, and I hope this helps.